Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the Family Law Show. I'm your host, Enrique Figueroa, and joining me today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Kelly McPherson, attorney and founding partner at Knies, Helland McPherson, attorneys at law in Colorado Springs. Kelly is a trained mediator who advocates for all her clients in all areas of family law, including child custody cases, military divorce, relocation, same-sex marriage, assisted reproduction, and common law marriage. Prior to practicing the law, Kelly was in the United States Air Force for 8 years, serving as an officer, a federal agent with the Air Force Office of Special Investigations, and as an assistant professor at the U.S. Air Force Academy. Kelly, welcome to the show today. How are you?
Great. Thank you for having me.
Wow. So that's quite the background. I think we're going to have a lot to discuss here and a great show in front of us. But I guess where to begin? You know, where are you from? What's your background, family? How did you find your way to the law?
Okay. Well, my background is I was a military brat growing up, hence going into the Air Force after that. So I've lived all over the world. And then I went into the military after going to the Air Force Academy. I think why I got interested in the law was my first couple jobs in the military was I worked as a federal agent in the Air Force and OSI, which is like NCIS, but for the Air Force. And I got a lot of courtroom experience, both in testifying as an agent and helping attorneys put the case together. So that was kind of the first point in time that I became interested in the law. And then after I got out of the military and went to law school, what drew me to family law specifically was it was an area of the law where you could be really creative, where you could learn a lot about families and how they raise their kids, and every case is different. So I really took a liking to family law, which is how I ended up here.
So you said you lived all over the world. Could you maybe give us some of the places you've been?
Okay, well, I'm going to have to remember the list. I have lived in Boston. I have lived in Albuquerque. I've lived in Washington, D.C. I'm trying to run through the list in my head right now. I've lived in Alabama, which was interesting. And I graduated high school over in England.
Wow. So was that like truncated list just the ones you remember the most for good reasons, or just kind of like a mix?
That was just the list that popped in my head. So there's some other places in there too. But I really enjoyed living in England and going to high school out there because I could remember all of those experiences and travel that I had out there.
You're still pretty close by some military bases. Do you still do a good amount of military family law?
We do. That's one of the things that we like to focus on here in the firm is helping military families out, both the service member and their spouses. So one of our other partners, Jen Knies, she was former military as well. She was in the Army. And then one of our associates, Ezra Hurwitz, he was in the Army too. And then we always joke that Jenny Helland is honorary Air Force because her kids play hockey up at the Air Force Academy, and she's done a lot of publishing and research on military issues too. So we love the military out here. We love military families, and that's a big area of concentration for us in our practice.
Now, are there some differences or nuances between, I guess, kind of civilian family law versus military family law?
A little bit. So in terms of the parenting issues, for military families, there's probably a move coming up for one of the parents or both, if it's a dual military couple, at some point in the future. So we do a lot of work trying to figure out what happens to the kids and how and where do they move in those scenarios. And then there's some really specific financial issues that come up for military service members, like what do we do with the military retirement after the divorce? What do we do with military benefits? And how do we account for a lot of the peculiarities in terms of how the military members are paid?
So how did you and all the partners meet? Like, what's the I guess coming together Avengers like super team?
The origin story.
The origin story. There we go. That's the one I'm looking for.
I wish I had a more interesting story for you than this, but we all worked together as associates at a firm in town with a really great boss, Carl Graham. And we got along. We liked going to trial together and helping each other out on our cases. We're all moms, we're all friends, and we just really clicked together. So it was sort of a natural glide path for us to team up and start our own firm.
So that's cool. You just all kind of fell into it just by becoming friends at another firm. That's wonderful. And the firm started out with just the three main partners,
We
or?
did. So at first it was just the three of us. And then Ezra Hurwitz joined us about a year or two after that. He was very brave. He jumped into an office of all women and has really just flourished. So we're very happy to have him. And we really enjoy working with him.
It's cool that it's a completely female-led firm. Now, good for Ezra that he's staying strong there, but I'm sure that actually probably helps him in day-to-day life, because Lord knows I could probably work with more women and be more understanding and patient, as my wife would probably like me to be. But, what are some advantages of that, of being an all-female-led firm?
I don't know that I've ever thought about it that way. So Ezra has done well here, but he grew up around sisters, so I think he just kind of naturally fell into it. I don't know that us all being women's really a benefit to the firm. I think all of us have very strong personalities and are very motivated and bring a lot of really unique viewpoints to how we approach our cases. And I think that's a large part of our success is we're just driven and we like to work hard. So I don't know that we necessarily get the female bump in the firm.
Maybe you can illuminate me a bit on this. It's something I've heard in the past. I don't know if it's necessarily true, but there is a rumor that I hear working with other family law firms and other family law attorneys that there is oftentimes an inclination for male clients to seek out female counsel in dealing with family law matters. In your experience, does that ring true at all, or is that just kind of like, a rumor?
So I don't know that I could say that there's a pattern of that, but we do occasionally get calls in where somebody specifically requests, hey, I want a female attorney or I want a male attorney. I would say it probably happens more often that the person's asking for a female attorney than a male attorney, though.
Now, do you think there's a reason behind that? Is it just generally speaking, maybe some differences between how a female attorney would handle a case versus a male attorney?
I personally don't think so. And it's kind of hard to make that conclusion at our firm because most of the attorneys and staff that we offer are female for the clients. So there's not a lot of options otherwise for people to get a male attorney unless Ezra can take them on. I have heard anecdotally that sometimes men want female attorneys to kind of soften them up in front of a judge if we end up at hearing. But I don't know that really necessarily helps.
In terms of the cases that come across your plate, is it just like a huge skew in favor of divorce nowadays with the onset of a pandemic and people getting sick of each other at home? Or is it kind of an even mix?
Yeah, so one of the interesting things that we've seen is we have seen a large spike in our divorce cases since the pandemic started. And I think there was a little bit of nervousness on our part when COVID first hit that we weren't going to have business. And we were exploring some of those options at the outset. But I think people are just spending more time together and realizing that some of these differences that they've had that maybe they could get away from being at work or traveling or something like that just aren't reconcilable. So we have seen a big uptick in divorces. We've also had a lot of cases involving parenting time issues for people that are already divorced because COVID interfered with a lot of that. So, if a kid had to go in quarantine for 14 days, they couldn't go spend time with their other parent. And so then we started getting into issues like makeup time, and when parents wouldn't give makeup time, if a kid had to quarantine, what do we do then? Or if we have one parent that's immunocompromised, do we need to relook at the parenting schedule and some of the provisions to make sure that both families were doing things that were safe for the immunocompromised parent?
So what kind of things did the firm have to look at or change up with the onset of the pandemic? Did you notice that you kind of like had to crack open the formula and say we need to resolve this, or were you guys already kind of in a sense already prepared for something like this?
Well, if we were prepared for something like that, then we're clairvoyant. But I would say the main thing that we had to do when the pandemic hit was just change the format and how we worked. So the actual cases themselves didn't really change that much, except for we had some newer issues. But we basically had to take our office and move it to a completely remote office overnight. So that was a lot of making sure that we were on a cloud-based system that was secure, making sure we could all communicate effectively when we were remote, and then figure out how to do all of these online Zoom meetings without appearing as a cat in front of the court.
So do you have like a room or a setup that is almost like a mimic court so that you can do hearings virtually?
Yeah, so we've done them in a bunch of different formats virtually. We have done some from home, and what we usually do with that is we'll put up signs at our house so our kids don't bug us when we're in a hearing that say, "Hey, leave mom alone. She's in court right now." I've done hearings from my office that I'm in right now with my client sitting across from me on the couch. And we also have a couple conference rooms in the office where we try to do the best we can to set it up like an actual courtroom with exhibit books and cameras and mics and all that stuff.
So what's one of the more odd things you've seen from opposing counsel pop up on like a virtual Zoom hearing? Did you see anything like, I mean, recently on the internet, there was an attorney had to explain they're not actually a cat.
So I would say now everything's pretty much evened out. We all know that we need to put our microphones on mute or make sure our cameras aren't running if we're not the person up that the court's talking to. But at the outset of it, you'd hear a lot of dogs barking. I'm guilty of that. Kids wandering in, asking for their snacks. I did hear one time somebody was on the toilet. I don't know who it was, if it was a witness or opposing counsel or the judge, but it was very obvious that they were in the bathroom.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I think that was a scene in the movie The Naked Gun too. So that's actually odd to hear that happen in real life.
Mm-hmm. It was.
So you said kids. How many children do you have?
I have 2 kids. My daughter's up at University of Northern Colorado Greeley. She's in her first year of college up there. And then my son just turned 15.
Oh, wow. There you go. Congratulations on the college. I know that I think right now is admissions time. So that's got to be exciting. Are you already kind of pushing your son to start thinking about the college route or start getting the grades as high as possible?
Yeah, I mean, he's a freshman, so my big message to him has been it counts now, so you can't mess around with things. But he's big into soccer, and he's thinking about the Air Force Academy, so we'll see how that goes.
Ah. So that's going to be like a friendly push toward the Air Force Academy a little bit?
I'm trying to be cool about it and let it be his decision.
Yeah, my dad, when I was a kid, wanted me, he didn't go to West Point, but he was always very big on, the idea of me going to West Point. And then he saw my grades after like my freshman year and the conversation kind of went away, which is, it's funny to think of now, but I mean, I know how competitive it is to get in one of those academies. So, best of luck to him. That's fantastic though. So in terms of cases, how you approach them, what are maybe some, like, how would you approach a situation where it's going to be a very tense divorce versus a client who's calling in about parenting time? Because I mean, I can imagine the approach is going to be very different between the two. How do you change the hat from call to call like that? I mean, what are some of the difficulties you run into?
So that's a really good point. And I think it's something that's unique to family law is every case is different. So you are changing your hat a lot during the day. But I would say sort of the overriding principle that I think of in all my cases is I really try to think what the long-term goal is. What are we really trying to do here? What does this look like 5 years from now? Because I think in divorce cases, it's really easy to get sucked into the immediate drama that's very emotional and can be very hurtful. And that's typically really expensive and a very short-term way to look at things for clients. And so what I try to do is be very sympathetic to those considerations and listen and do what I can, but really redirect my clients to what does this look like at the end of the day? Because really what I want for all my clients is to have that new start and to be able to pursue, a better home life, a better work life, and just better happiness for them at the end of it. And so that's how I see why they hire me is to make sure that I can help them see through what's going on in the immediate to set them up for success later.
Now, when clients call in, do you have an intake team that handles the first contact, or is it, they ring right to one of the
Oh, no, we
attorneys?
have an intake team because we do get a lot of phone calls during the day, thanks to you guys. Um, and they're phenomenal. So we have two ladies that work with clients, potential clients, listen to their stories, and then try to pair them with the attorney that they think is going to be right for their case. And they are fantastic at what they do.
So I can imagine I mean, at least for me, I feel like it might be a little difficult. These are some very heart-wrenching stories. These are some tough situations you come up with every day. Kind of not bringing that home with you, not letting that affect your work-life balance, I guess, so to speak. Like, what are some of the tips or tricks you use to kind of, when you're home and you're with your family and you're on your personal time, it's your personal time?
Well, I was hoping you'd have some tips for me.
Well, I
But yeah,
mean,
I think that's a big challenge of the job because, for a lot of people, what they're going through is one of the most stressful points of their life. And I think I saw an article somewhere that said second to a major death in the family, divorce is right up there as one of the most stressful events in someone's life. And at our firm, we do a really good job, I think, in, listening to our clients and really trying to help them problem solve. But going home's tough sometimes when you have that all day. So me personally, I really like working out and running and playing soccer and just kind of goofing off. So that's how I um, burn off stress. And I know a lot of people here, we all have different hobbies that we go home to. So we've got some ladies in the firm that play hockey. We have one of the gals in the firm, she makes custom designer handbags. So she goes home and does that as her outlet, which is really cool. So we all kind of have our own vices when we get home to try to burn off some steam.
that's great. And it's funny you mentioned tips because one of my, so I do CrossFit for
Oh,
fun. I know it's not fun to say that's for fun, but, I guess I'm a little loose there. The main coach that is my CrossFit coach actually worked on a cruise ship most of his life. So as soon as pandemic hit, he actually put out this video explaining how he would live on a cruise ship in like a 5x5 room for months on end and how to actually handle being quarantined or be at home or like being in confined space. And that was always really helpful to me, at least from the start, because he would say things like, your workspace is just your workspace. And when you're done working, you shut it down. You don't go back there until you start work next day. And then he talked about, just if you don't have like a set of routines every day, like almost to the point where you're writing them down, it's like I hit these check marks every single day to start my day. And then this is how I keep my structure and sanity. And I always thought that was really interesting. And those things help me out, at least with that. So it's like, wake up every morning, you make the bed, you make the coffee next, you turn on the computer, you turn on some music, things like that. That always helped me out because, yeah, I mean, it's tough now, I think, because home and work, it's pretty much one and the same now for so many
you
people.
should see this video.
So, I mean, yeah, I had to redesign my whole, entryway here at the house. No, luckily, we have, decent taste, I think, so we're
It's
all
good
right.
feng shui from what I can see.
Yeah, the flow's all right. I think it's doing all right. Things after quarantine is up. What's like number one on the list? Things you want to do after you can kind of roam freely throughout the world again.
Professionally or personally?
Let's go professionally first and then personally.
So professionally, I think we've been very fortunate kind of going back again to we were able to essentially pick the office up and move it remote overnight. We really didn't have any sort of blip in operations. Now we're all spending about half the time in the office, which has been really nice just to reconnect with people and see everyone. So one of the things I'm looking forward to after the pandemic is having everybody back in the office because we have such an amazing group and just great chemistry together. But I also miss going out to lunch with other attorneys in town. That used to be something that we were able to do a lot and really connect with other attorneys. And I've missed that piece of it.
Where do you see the firm? Do you want to continue to grow the firm into a bigger firm, or are you kind of content with the size right now? You want to keep kind of like that big firm feel, but still boutique, or are you thinking of growing and
Yeah,
growing?
so that's $1 million question. One of the things that's coming up for our firm is we are thinking about bringing on another associate. We had a intern with us, I think it was a year or two ago, who just took the bar exam. So we're in talks with him to have him join us. He's also former military, and his wife's an employment law attorney in town too. So that's what's up next for us in terms of growth. Growth beyond that, I think that's just going to have to be a larger conversation for us because we're considered a bigger family law firm for Colorado Springs, and growth is a tough topic, and when we grow, we want to make sure we do it right. So I think we'll probably need to sit down with somebody after that and really talk about what that would look like if we want to grow more.
So you mentioned that former intern and how he's married to an employment law attorney. That actually makes me wonder, family law, that's your focus, but do you have other cases that come across your plate, or if you get a call for something, say bankruptcy related, do you have like a list of attorneys that you would refer that out to, or are you equipped as a team to handle any kind of case that comes across the plate?
We do refer a lot of cases out that aren't family law related, but we're all starting to dabble in some other areas of the law. So we've done some probate cases, we've done some adoptions, which are wonderful cases and just really heartwarming opportunities to see families grow and bring somebody else into love. I had a case last year that involved the disposition of frozen embryos, which was a really neat case to be involved in. We're starting to do some work in appellate law. So even though we try to focus primarily on family law, we do branch out when we feel like our skill set's appropriate for that.
Now, this is always the tough question because, and I love hearing the answers, but if you could get in your DeLorean and you could go back in time and you could see your younger self, what advice would you give yourself coming out of law school, getting ready to branch out into the world, things that maybe you wish you knew at the start that you kind of had to figure out along the way? What advice would you give your younger self?
I think I would give my younger self, I would say, cut yourself a break. I was always so nervous that I wasn't going to do well and be able to provide for my family when I was younger, and everything has turned out fine. Even though it's been a much different path than I expected to take, it's all turned out okay. I've got great kids. I love the job that I'm in, so I think I would just probably tell my younger self to chill out a little bit.
I like that. I think I'd probably tell my younger self the same. Yeah. That and probably you don't need the 3-item combo from Panda Express. But, that's a different one. That's like a professional one. Well, Kelly, thank you so much for being on the Family Law Show today. And everyone watching today, if you've liked it, please be sure to subscribe. Go to scorpion.co, follow us there, and stay tuned for future episodes. Once again, thank you for watching the Family Law Show. Kelly McPherson at Knies, Helland McPherson, attorneys at law in Colorado Springs. Take care, everybody. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thanks for having me.